Welcome everyone to this week's IPLD sync meeting. It's October the 10th, 2022. And as every 2 weeks, we go over the stuff that people have worked on and then discuss any open agenda items or answer questions or discuss any IPLD related things. So let's see. Oh, I have some update that is written down, which I will just quickly read out as the person mentioned. So Steve has an update, but he can't be here. So yes. That's also like an important thing. So in about 2 weeks, 2 to 3 weeks, there is a big event in Lisbon for IPFS called IPFS Camp. And there's obviously room for IPLD. And Steve here says that there should probably be also a place to do some sessions about IPLD. And he's looking for people kind of driving this and making sure there are sessions. So if anyone volunteers or wants to get into, that would be great. So it would be great to have some roadmap for IPLD, what people want to see or want to work on or will work on, perhaps even before the event. And also Juan would be happy to meet with people and before the event or during the event to check on the timelines and roadmap items or ideas we have. So if anyone has ideas, probably so the question is who is driving this, because like we can do it through GitHub, I guess. But so if anyone's watching this, feel free to catch us on the chat channels, like on Matrix, Discord, or Slack. I think everything is bridged. And also, just on the github.com/IPLD/ I will probably use the IPLD repo. Feel free to open issues, and then we will go from there.
I wonder if at the end of the meeting, if we have time, should we just do a quick brainstorm on roadmappy type things, just so that we have some prep.
Yeah. That's good. And then also like people could also like even then comment even. So after this meeting, the meeting notes are uploaded as a PR. So also feel free to comment there. All right. Yes. So having said all this, get me back to the other things. So I have updates here. So next on my list is Mauve. You are muted.
Sorry, one sec.
Okay. We can also just like go on with Rod, perhaps, if you are not ready yet. Rod, are you ready to give an update?
Ready enough. I didn't actually come as prepared as I wanted to do this, because there's a bunch of other stuff. It's all these sort of minor things that I've been chasing around, but I've got the two major-ish things in the notes that I've been working on. One is Go Merkle-Dag has a 0.8 release out that is a fairly important update. There's multiple situations where you can put a proto node into a state that will panic, it just becomes awkward for implementations that allow users to interact with building a proto node like Kubo. Anyway, so there's a 0.8 release that sort of closes some of the edges where you can put it in a state where it may panic. So there's sort of lots of just protection around it, really. So that's 0.8 is out. That is a strongly recommended update. And the other thing is JS Multiformats will finally have a release today if all goes well, but it seems to be going well. We've been working on this for a long time. So Mauve put in a bunch of work a couple of months ago to start the ESM only migration for that. Ghazala has been working on a TypeScript interface for CIDs for some time, really wanted to get that in, and we're finally getting that over the line. And we're calling that interface link rather than CID. So we have, so you can just use that as your interface where you accept CIDs, but don't necessarily need the concrete version. So that should make both ESM only and that interface should make JavaScript code look a little bit different going forward. But the next step after release of this, which will be version 10, is just going to be the flow-on impact of having an ESM only release that we have to absorb everywhere else. So there's going to be a lot more ESM upgrading throughout our stack. So the codecs and all the pieces that consume multi-formats now that are trying to do CommonJS as well are going to have to be changed. So we're sort of about to press the button and get notifications from Dependabot that stuff is all broken. So that's more work to go. Anyway, that will be a relief to get that out. So they're the two main things from me.
Thanks. I see that Mauve has left the room. So next
I have one more. Now that Alexandri's here, he's reminded me. His presence has reminded me. We have so we have the wonderful contribution of Julia. Let me just find this issue. So Julia is doing a UX review of IPLD.io. And I'm going to put this in notes, but I'll put it in the chat just for now. And so she's going over, and we've asked her to have a look at ideas for improving both the design. Like design is the big thing we want, and also just UX from a user perspective coming in and how people interact with it. And so we're having a very active conversation. We have so there's the issue there. She's working from a Figma file, and if anybody wants access to that, you can just drop a note in that issue, and we can give you access. I think you've got to put your email address. We do have a Slack channel, but I think it's private. We need to make it public for this. It's not rapid, and we don't actually have anyone assigned specifically to do the implementation work. So this is sort of a slow roll thing. We're just getting the ball started on the review stuff. So yeah, that's cool. Be nice to get a fresh bit of paint on there. Anyway, that's that issue, number 240 in the IPLD /IPLD repo. And again, there's a Slack channel, and I'll in Filecoin Slack and wherever that's bridged to, Discord and other places, I'll put a note about that channel when we get it made public, and you can join in if anyone's interested.
Thanks. So Mauve is back. Let's see if we can hear
me.
Yes, we can hear you.
Oh, thank goodness. Yeah, so I've been working more on specs and stuff. So I've been working on the IPLD URL stuff. Recently, I updated the IP created for shoot, where's my brain? For a new /IPLD endpoint on IPFS gateways, and also an IPLD URL scheme. So I've been kind of talking about it for a while, but I've added some more details to the spec based on the experiments I've run so far. And I've also been working on integrating it with the Agricor browser. was actually wondering if I could try to do a demo real quick, if people are interested. Here is Egregore. I can show you how to upload. Am I still there? Hopefully. Oh,
I can't see. Do others see it?
Oh,
Yes, I can see it now.
I think you might be bandwidth constrained, but we can see it.
okay. So over here, you can see I just created an IPFS website by uploading an example.html file to IPFS. However, the cool thing you can do now is to be an IPLD URL. So what I can do now is kind of look at what that structure looks like in DAG.json. One of the features of the IPLD URL kind of request data to be sent to you in a different format than what it was in. So this is MIG-PB data that I'm now viewing as a DAG.json. And a cool feature is that you can click through on any links that are in your DAG. So it auto detects this structure of JSON where you have an object with a single key that's a slash pointing to a CID, and translate those CIDs in IPLD links. So here I'm clicking through, and so with
I'm not sure if we are seeing what you are talking about. So I see a browser window and a console.
And what?
And the web developer tools. Okay, he's gone. So okay. Anyway, so all right. Then I guess we just go on with people on the list. Okay. Yep.
Am I audible?
You are.
You're audible, but you're a little bit roboty. We saw enough of that to make some sense of it, but it was a little bit choppy.
Dang. Okay, that sucks. Yeah, I think that IPS node might be destroying my bandwidth as well. It's not a great thought.
Ironic.
But well, I mean, there's a need for optimization. But cool thing is that this IPLD handler and the ability to have rendered in JSON by default and traverse through any links is now you traverse any arbitrary IPLD dataset. So say you have like a large hand that you want to just manually trudge through, you can make use of Rigore's protocol handlers. So I think it's just kind of like a useful example of how exposing the underlying data model can make it easier to play around with data rather than having to import a bunch of libraries and build tools to get absolutely anything working. And it'll work better, but it looked fine on my end mostly because it was all local data.
I did have questions about codecs because when you were uploading that hello world thing, did that just get encoded as a raw code? Like, well, there was no codec information there, and yet you could render it. What was it encoded as?
Yeah, so I encoded it, or when you post to the IPFS protocol handlers in Egregore, it's similar to the writable gateway option in Kubo's gateway, where you can add arbitrary bytes. And when you get back the URL, it sniffs the file extension to get a MIME type. So there I posted to example.html. And so when I copied the resulting IPFS link, the protocol handler noted that it was .html encoding, so it set the content type to be text HTML with charset UTF-8. So if it was a binary file like an image.
Okay. So it's just bytes.
Yeah, so that's for IPFS. However, with IPLD, when you're uploading, there is a post handler for IPLD, but when you're uploading it, it expects you to update or upload data in the IPLD codec. So if you specify,
Whoa.
Yeah. Oh, okay. You are back.
this sucks. $150 a month for this. Yes. Go to the IPLD protocol handler. You can specify the encoding that your content is in.
Right.
And then you can also specify a different format for it to save in. So I could use DAG-JSON to post data to the IPLD node, but then I could give it a little hint saying that I want you to save this as DAG-CBOR. So
Right.
applications can use codecs that they don't have to do extra imports for, while still saving stuff in the most efficient way possible, which I think is a useful distinction.
Yeah, so it's like the IPFS DAG API, where you get to specify both things. This is what I'm giving you, and this is what I want you to save it as. Yeah.
Yep, exactly. Which
Nice.
is kind of exposing it in a webby way for, I guess, most web devs. But also this is useful if you're using curl as your main interface. Yeah, other thing I've been working on is working off of what Steve mentioned about people's roadmaps for IPLD. So I'm putting together a large blog post of all of the things I think we could do with IPLD to make it more accessible to people and kind of position it within other things that are going on, like WNFS, IRO, and work on IPVM, as well as different new data structures that are coming out, like trolley trees and the stuff Michael's working at DAG House for verifiable queries and UCANs. So I'm probably Michael's working at House. We're going to release that this week for folks to talk about. Yeah, and I think that's all I've really got. Next, I'm going to be working off of what we did in multi-formats to start migrating more of the libraries to ESM, which should be fun and less painful. Cool. Yeah, that's all I got.
Cool, thanks. So is it also okay if because we talked about like people, like if people want to contribute to the roadmap or have thoughts, that they also could ping you, I guess, if that's okay on the like channels and stuff.
Yeah, totally. We have weekly team meetings for the IPLD team on Tuesdays. So ideally either today or early tomorrow, or we'll get to it as a team next week. Or just post it in the chat so we can discuss.
Perfect, thanks. Okay, so next on my list is Eric.
I'm not prepared. I did not have the tab on the screen. Okay. So I do not have too many things to update because I have graduated mostly into being an IPLD user instead of digging around in the libraries and the core bits. But I would like to say probably at the IPFS camp that's coming up in Lisbon at the end of October. If you haven't heard of it yet, it's a thing. Go look for the website. I think it's 2022.ipfs.camp or something. It'll be fun. There'll be lots of things. And you'll probably hear me talk a little bit about IPLD data structures in applications. And some of the applications I'm personally looking at are like how to version data, how to map names onto hashes of stuff, how to do, I don't know, package management descriptions, stuff like that. But it's all going to be just IPLD in action. So it will be, at least nothing I'm going to talk about is going to be IPLD guts. It will just be like, how do we use this to solve problems? So I hope that'll be fun. And many other people will talk about many other things, but I have no idea what I'm talking about. So go look at the website for that to find one. I'd also like to relay some news from other people. There's a person named Dustmop on GitHub who's still hacking away on the Go DataLark repo in the IPLD GitHub org, which is bringing IPLD bindings into Starlark if you're using the Golang Starlark interpreter. And the latest work there is we're bringing all of support for all of the possible mutation syntaxes in Starlark, which is everything Python does. So like, reach into a dict in Python language, like assign by array index and stuff like that. We had not supported all of the syntaxes for mutations until recently. The last couple of commits landing in that repo are now supporting mutation more and more freely. And this is interesting in part because the Go IPLD libraries that it's building on don't support mutation very much. They're very aggressively copy on write sort of algorithms. You always have to construct a new one. So the DataLark library is building what Dustmop calls mutation sidecars. So there's an object memory that you interact with from the Python Starlark sort of syntax that has a pointer to the IPLD data that is frozen already, and a pointer to all of the mutations that it has tracked. And so you can use that to continue accumulating mutations or read back the mutated data. And as soon as you call the freeze operand in Starlark or try to get IPLD library data back out, it applies all the mutations, produces the copy on write copy. Ta-da! It's kind of slick, kind of cool. I hope this is like the best of both worlds sort of behavior. Most of this is becoming available in Starlark, but probably there's ideas here that could be more way back, more generalized. Future work. I think that's the end of the updates that I shall share. And I'm dragging somebody else on my screen who is maybe working on content addressable data structures and file systems, but I don't know if he'll want to spend any time on camera.
Yeah, I mean, I'm Florian, Floki on the internet. I've been playing around a bit with IPLD and in general Merkle tree structures to represent artifacts, build artifacts from package managers and build systems, and to see how to distribute them and make use of resharing of certain parts in these artifacts by using content address stashing. And yeah, I'm just playing around with IPLD and seeing how I can make it work for that specific use case to potentially distribute yeah, these artifacts through IPLD, through IPFS. And yeah, it's still very, very early, very work in progress, but it's exciting, and yeah, that's all I can say.
Cool. Thanks. So let's see. All right. Does anyone else wants to share anything or has any updates or questions? Else we could, what Rod suggested, quickly go into some road mapping or just some ideas that people might have that what IPLD should do in the future. Yeah, then okay. So I probably only have, I guess, one item, because like what I really want to see for years is that there is some JavaScript version of IPLD, which is like IPFS, but without UnixFS. So it's just but it's this basically IPLD and like the networking and pops up and whatever, like everything. But okay. Oh, I see in the chat room that it's already a thing or becomes a thing.
Yeah, so part of the road mapping that I've been planning is exposing a higher level API to do all of the fancy IPLD things. So right now we have traversal, we have ADLs and the data model. And in Go IPLD Prime, it's put behind a bunch of useful typed interfaces that are divorced from actual peer-to-peer file transfer or data transfer. And in JavaScript, we have like a dozen libraries that are all doing some IPLD stuff, and most of them are also pretty separate from the peer-to-peer all-in-one use case. I've been working on this other thing I'm calling JS IPLD Resolve, which might be renamed to JS IPLD System, which is kind of an out-of-the-box.
Oh, it just got exciting.
I don't know why Zoom hates me. This is awful. Anyways, but I want to expose IPLD URLs and IPLD lenses as a first-class interface for developers to use. And I want to make it easy to just import a thing and be like, I want to read from IPLD URLs. I want to apply lenses to some data. I want to mutate existing data with patches and have one place where we have all of these nice high-level features and an out-of-the-box implementation for how data is loaded and saved, which can be changed for more advanced use cases, like where you don't want to include libp2p, but just have something out of the box for people to start playing with. I'm also hoping to get some of this stuff integrated with the IPLD or with the Kubo gateway or some other gateways like IRO. And that'll also give us like another obvious place for using this stuff. So if we can get IPLD URLs in a spec and into IRO, then we can get some usable high-level interfaces for IPLD that aren't UnixFS, that are a break from legacy code, that are more clean and using higher-level features. So that's something that I'm actively working on this year.
That's cool, but what I'm also after is really like not like having it just like, for example, like in the browser, just locally. So I have it. I might even have it in my own storage, and just want to do like on the perhaps not my own storage, but I want to manipulate IPLD things and then put them, somewhere, and then they get, I know, I get a pub sub event to somewhere else and so on. So really basically the local first thing, and then it will automatically somehow distribute it somewhere. This is what I'm after, basically, without having basically without having something like IRO or so running somewhere, but just like potentially directly peer-to-peer, ideally, which is hardly possible but in the browser, but hopefully in the future. Yeah, but it sounds like getting into this direction, so this is cool.
Yeah, so anything where you can have like a get node and set node, which I think is easy to implement over top of libp2p and just a block store. If you can get that running in the browser, which I think is easy to do, you can get this IPLD URL system running there too.
You are muted in case you didn't want to mute yourself because you were cut off somehow.
Oh, I think I was done talking.
Okay, cool. Yeah. Okay, cool. Yeah, it's just like because like it's sometimes a bit hard to tell because you sound so robotic, so it's hard to tell if you are like cut off or if it was intentional. Anyway, should we do some more road mapping, or like what's the plan? Oh, it is the plan. So, Rod, do you have things, or do you plan to just share them directly with Mauve then?
I have trouble when thinking about road mapping. I'm in this place that I think others have been in, where you're in the weeds too much and it's hard to look up and see what's ahead. You know, we have this project board for IPLD that is really large that I'd really like to get made small and I just haven't like I don't have the time to squash that board. I'd really like to be able to squash it so that we can get on top of things and then feel like we can build new stuff. So, I'm actually happy to have Mo able to think, future type stuff for particularly the JavaScript stack. I really would love to see more data structure work. That's a long-standing desire for me. And I think that's going to be the strength of IPLD as all this other stuff happens around it. If we can be supporting the building of novel data structures, then I think that's one of the biggest things we can do. Volker, you pointed me to some interesting stuff in the Rust, the Rust FBM work recently, where they were playing with the HAMP implementation and using identity hashes to get ordered entries in the HAMP, which is at the same time terrifying, but also novel and interesting. But sort of pulling in that work and documenting it and experimenting with it and socializing it, I think, is something that we could be doing more of.
All right. On the chat, there was a project called Graphology mentioned that I haven't heard of. So if anyone wants to check it out, it's obviously about graphs and JavaScript. Yeah, I haven't checked it out. I can't say anything about it. Yeah.
Yeah, I just found about it and found it very interesting. The thinking behind it. The person that started the project started it, I guess, like 5 years ago or so, and did some presentations around it. And it seems very heavily like inspired and it seems to have a very heavy thought data structure backend and whatnot. And I was wondering if any of you knew about it already, and maybe there's I was thinking if maybe we can start thinking of how we can better integrate with other libraries, other implementations and whatnot around data structures, around graphs, and maybe enabling or facilitating integrations to use IPLD as part of some of the layers, but not on the so high tech like blockchain world. So we could maybe use other markets as a source of talent, a source of knowledge, a source of maybe funding. So I started wondering a bit about that.
Well, so my thoughts just quickly having a look at this graphology thing. So we definitely have questions about how to have a better graph interface from JavaScript. We know what that looks like in Go, but JavaScript presents new challenges where we can't just port those same concepts straight across. So this does look interesting, at least in suggesting some ways forward. And maybe what we need to do in JavaScript with this is, rather than trying to copy the Go patterns directly, is come up with entirely new patterns for manipulating and maintaining graphs, while also being true to sort of the IPLD stack, because we want to retain. The ideal is that we get some kind of unified place where we have this notion of selectors and ADLs that you can layer. but it has to work sensibly in each of the languages we do it in, and that's the biggest challenge we have, I think.
At risk of disconnecting myself again, I've also been thinking about graphs and IPLD, but from the context of graph databases and RDF, which is used for stuff like JSON LD. So there's ways of representing strongly typed graphs of information in the RDF space, which I think work decently well with content addressing. We still need to figure out what mutation would look like in these spaces. But there are also query languages for this, like Sparkle, which are made for querying arbitrary graphs. And there's some other, I think Gremlin is another graph query language. But in the kind of like graph database space, there's like a bunch of approaches to storing graphs. And I'm hoping to partner with some groups that do RDF, like the authors of ActivityPub, or if you've seen them around, Bengo does lots of cool stuff around DIDs and stuff. And so that's kind of more where I was thinking, where we standardize on the data and standardize on query languages rather than having something in IPLD itself. Because looking at this graphology graph, it is not everything that it can do will work in IPLD, just due to the way it works and the way its mutability works. So trying to glue IPLD into this would be a lot more difficult than just having proper graphs built on top of IPLD. Yeah.
All right. Anything else people want to talk about? Else, I would close the live stream. After the live stream, there's also the after party for things that people don't want to share publicly in the stream or just talking about off-topic things. Yeah. All right. Then thanks everyone for attending. It was good to see so many people. And by the way, I think we should, I propose we skip the meeting in 2 weeks, because this is when the week of the IPFS camp basically, and I'm already in Lisbon then, and I'm not sure I can make it to the meeting, and other folks in this room as well. So so let's, I guess people agree that we should skip the meeting next week. So for everyone watching, we skip this meeting next week, so we see us all again in 4 weeks, and then probably with lots of news, because in between was the IPFS camp. And as we see us in 4 weeks, also the note that this meeting stays on UTC time, so it won't shift even if your time zone changes. This meeting will be at 21 hours UTC. All right, see you all in 4 weeks then. Goodbye, everyone.
Bye-bye.
Thanks.